So it's summer of 2019. I'm 16 years old and I'm walking straight in my neighborhood trying to get some exercise. And my neighborhood that I'm in, right? It's just like a regular neighborhood, right? Where, there's houses, there's like a main road. And so this one day, right, I was just walking to get some exercise in like the morning at like 9 a.m., enjoying the sun, just trying to walk, right? And I walk for around 30 minutes and I'm going down the road back to my house. I'm about to finish, and as I'm walking down the road alone, something scary happens. As I'm walking towards the road that my house is on, I see a lady walking her dog that's coming towards me. And in this moment, I'm like super anxious, right? Because I always had low confidence and I always had anxiety around strangers and people that I know. So, this lady was coming closer and closer, and I had to go on this road, right? Because, it didn't make sense for me to, go away or go around, right? My house was literally on this road. And, this lady's coming closer and closer. And I get in my head, I'm getting kind of scared. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, and should I say hi? Should I smile? Like I'm contemplating even saying hi to this random stranger, right? This woman who's like walking her dog in my neighborhood. And she gets closer and closer, and I get scared to the point where I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna walk straight. I'm just gonna walk straight, keep my eyes straight, and pretend like I don't even see her, right? And so, she's getting closer and closer, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like here it is, here she's coming. But as soon as she comes, she takes a sharp left and goes down like the other intersection of the block. And in this moment, I had like a huge sigh of relief, like, right? Huge sigh of relief because I didn't have to say hi to this person. I didn't have to deal with the awkwardness of, passing by this stranger that I didn't know. But after that walk and when I got home, it stood out to me because I realized that there's people who would have just said hi. There's people who would have actually acknowledged a stranger. Yet I was here contemplating, getting nervous about having low confidence, just saying hi to a stranger. And I realized that this was a problem. And I realized in my life, dude, I don't want to have this low confidence. I don't want to have this low confidence because I'm going to need confidence to go up to people, talk to people, make friends. And I'm just like, dude, I can't live the rest of my life with this anxiety, not having any confidence whatsoever. So during this time in my life, I started doing a ton of research, hours of YouTube watching videos, hours of reading books, even talking to people now recently who have high confidence and telling me a bunch of things. And throughout all those things, I'm going to tell you 5 things that you can literally do right now to boost your confidence. Like I literally started doing these things now, and it's almost like weight off your shoulders. And this isn't anything like, oh, go to the gym, eat healthy. Like these things are going to help you, obviously, but that takes time. Like building a wardrobe, getting nice clothes and everything, that takes a long time. Okay. But these are things that you can literally start doing right now or buy right now, that it's just going to take weight off your shoulders and you're just going to become instantly more confident. Like I I started doing these 5 things and I started like going up to people. There was less anxiety in my life. I realized that like I started doing more things that I usually didn't do, and I felt good about myself. And 2 of these things are going to be like physical things that you can do or buy right now that are going to make you feel more confident. And then 3 of these things, the last 3 things, are going to be kind of just like realizations from a book that I read called The Subtle Art of Not Giving Enough. I don't want this video to be demonetized, so I'm not going to say that. But yeah, two physical things, and then 3 things that you can do that they're realizations. So it's almost as like you realize it and you think it changes the way you're thinking, and it like you think like this forever. It changes your way of thinking. So these are the 5 things I'm going to be saying. So the first one, an easy one, right, is literally chewing gum in social situations. Now, most of you have heard this, right? It sounds stupid, but most of us have heard this trick, right? And if you haven't, it's basically the idea and the biological aspect that you will become less nervous when you're chewing gum in social situations, because biologically your body will not eat if it's in like a state of stress or anxiety. So if you're eating something, your body's gonna be like, oh, we're eating something. Everything's okay. Everything's okay. There's no need to worry about everything. Because if we were in a state of anxiety and trouble, we wouldn't be eating. So when you start chewing gum in social situations, right, this actually works. And I'm gonna tell you how this changed my life, right? So remember, I'm only like a couple steps ahead of you, right? There's nobody in this world who experiences zero anxiety. And the reason why I'm telling you that is because I was experiencing a little bit on the first day of classes, right? So, first day of classes in a huge university that I'm in with 40,000 people. First day of classes, I had a 9 a.m. And as I'm going from my house to like the campus, right? Basically, I was getting kind of just like in my thoughts. I started thinking about, oh, who I'm gonna see. There's a ton of people. Am I gonna see the classmates from last year? Am I going to see people that I used to talk to but don't anymore? And so, my brain was literally just like flooded with these thoughts. But luckily, the night before, I actually bought like a pack of mint gum because I always like to have gum in situations where you know I just want some gum, right? So I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna start chewing it, right? So as I was going to class, I was kind of experiencing this like kind of like side anxiety, right? And I remember as I pulled out the gum and I started chewing it, it actually made things a lot better. It's just like it might be a placebo as well, but even if it's a placebo, it literally like that whole day, like it kind of just like made it a lot better. And something else that it kind of does too, it's kind of just like something to chew on because it's kind of like it's something to do with your mouth. So, for example, I remember like when this happened like this week, right? I literally started doing this week. This is crazy, and I'm teaching you about it. But basically, I remember like I was in class, right? And usually I would kind of get like that anxiety of like, oh, who's here? Who should I talk to? What should I say? Lots of things going on in my mind, right? But as I started chewing the gum, it was kind of just like something to like chew on, something to do with my mouth. And when you chew gum in social situations, it's kind of just like something else to think about because obviously you don't want to swallow the gum. You can like choke on the gum, but like it kind of distracts you because like if you're getting in your thoughts, it's kind of just like, oh wait, like I have this piece of gum in my mouth, like I need to like rearrange it in my mouth or like start chewing on the other side, right? So I know it sounds like super simple, but this trick actually works. Try it. It's something to do with your mouth, kind of a distraction. Super life changing in my opinion. The second thing that is like a physical aspect, right? You can buy and like start feeling confident is supplementing omega-3 fish and creatine. Now, if you're not in the fitness industry, that's fine. But basically, if you don't know these supplements, omega-3 fish and creatine boost cognitive function. And basically, my story of how this worked was basically the fact that I was getting into fitness. I was doing hours of research, and I basically joined this testosterone group in 2019. And I was learning about different foods, the best foods for testosterone boosting your health. And testosterone is correlated with cognitive function. So the way you think about yourself, that's all dictated by testosterone and the foods that you eat. And the best foods and the best supplements that I learned from this paid group, right, was omega-3 fish and creatine. Omega-3 fish has polyunsaturated fats, which boost cognitive function, and then creatine. Our body already has creatine. You've heard that I think 90% of the body is water or something. So creatine keeps that water in you because your body needs water. Creatine keeps the water in you and boosts cognitive function. And I remember I was doing this study on creatine where basically they took someone who's sleep deprived. This guy got like 2 to 3 hours of sleep. They took him and basically they gave him creatine. And when they gave him 20 grams of creatine, he had like the brain wavelength as someone who had like no like sleep deprivation whatsoever. So he had like sleep deprivation. He has brain fog and everything. He's not thinking clearly because he hasn't slept. But they gave him creatine, and he started thinking and acting as someone who had already like slept for 6 to 8 hours that whole week. So these two things, I take them all the time. I feel better with them. And if it's boosting brain cognitive function, this makes you like 10 times sharper in social situations. So like not only are you gonna like feel better about yourself, but you're literally going to probably like start saying better things, things that make sense. You can probably think of like jokes to say, just like reacting and just being sharp in social situations. So definitely supplement these things. You don't need to buy the most expensive ones. Just get one tub of each. You can get the cheapest one if you want. You don't have to invest that much, but things that are really going to help you feel more confident. So the next three things, the next three tips I'm going to tell you, these are tips that I actually learned in a book. And like I said, this author, right, he basically made this book. The title is like self-explanatory. The book teaches you like how to care less, how to not give an F in social situations, and like do things you want to do without feeling anxiety or any regret. So I'm going to teach you three really important concepts that I learned in this book, right? So the first concept that I ended up learning is the idea of death. And this author, Mark Manson, he basically says that, there's so many things in this world that are unpredictable. Like, we don't know what's going to happen next week. We don't know who's going to die next week. We don't know what news is going to happen. But something that we'll always know that will happen to every single person is death. Because death is pretty much inevitable. Everybody dies. So basically, he basically tells us on how, as humans, we try to do so much, because we know we're going to die, right? But he basically says that whenever in your situation where you want to do something, but, you're hesitant, for example, talking to an attractive woman, or, talking to a friend, or, trying to ask to be invited to a party, right? Whenever you're in those situations where you're really hesitant and you're nervous. He basically says if you start thinking about your own death, admitting to yourself and thinking that one day you're gonna die, it's gonna like push you in a way to like do that, right? Because nobody, and I remember they did a study on this. He basically says in the book that most of the people, I think almost everyone that was basically on their deathbed, they were like minutes away from dying. They asked every single person, you know, what is the biggest regret? What's something you wish you told everyone? These people on their deathbed, these old people, they're just like, oh, I regretted not doing so many things. I wish I would have met more people. So basically, in this book, he basically summarizes that when you start thinking about your death in those nervous situations, you're going to be like, wait, 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 wait. I'm literally going to die. Like, I'm literally going to die. I'm going to perish. But yet, I can't ask for this person's number. I can't ask to be invited. I can't go up and talk to this person. So you start pushing yourself, and this has like changed me a lot because this has helped me like take those risks in social situations, ask those questions, talk to more people, because nobody wants that and we're all going to die. That's something you can't change. So that's another really powerful concept that I learned. The fourth thing, or the second thing from this book, right? I just go by tips. So the fourth concept that I learned is this idea of a problem free life. There's no such thing as a problem free life, and I'm going to tell you how this has changed my life, right? So basically, I've always been envious of people with big families because I come from a small family of five, right? There's not a lot. And because of that, because I only come from like a family of five, right? I've never experienced like the experience of like meeting a bunch of cousins, talking to family during holidays, having big holiday family dinners. I've never had that whatsoever. And whenever friends have told me that, oh, bro, it was Christmas time. I went to go see my cousins. We had a good time. I always get envious because I've never had that. I've never experienced that. It's always been like a kind of like a boring. I'm thankful for my parents and my family, but it's always been very low key, small family of five, Christmas and holiday time. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like I have this huge problem. I'm lonely. It'd be so much better to have a big family, right? And I would feel bad about it. I'm just like, oh, I want a big family so bad, but I can't change that, obviously. But once I started reading this book, I realized that there is problems with every single thing in this world. So for example, I met someone who was basically telling me that her big family, having a big family was a problem for her, and she actually wanted a small family. Because she was telling me on every single time she had to meet her big family, lots of her cousins, her uncles, her nephews, whatever, there'd always be family drama. There'd always be someone talking about each other. There'd be, there'd just be so many things to think about and so many factors in a big family. And when I read this and when I saw this and started thinking about the book, I'm just like, this is 100% true. There is a problem with every single thing in life. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because whenever you're experiencing a problem in life, something's not going well, don't see it as like a loss. See it as something normal and see it as a transformation. And I'm going to give you another example of this because there's no one in this world that lives a problem-free life. And this is going to help you kind of like stop comparing yourself to people, and it's going to help you it's basically going to help you like to be calm and not anxious when you're going through problems. So think about it like the gym. Imagine you're obese, right? You're experiencing the problems of being obese. You're fat, you're bloated, nobody's talking to you because you're fat, right? You're obese. So you're experiencing the problems of being obese, right? But you think the solution, right? The solution, oh, is to get in shape. To get in shape, I'm fixing problems, right? But even though you're fixing a problem, you're getting more problems now Because think about it. Okay, you're fat, right? Your solution is going to the gym, getting in shape. Once you're going to the gym and in shape, here are your new problems. Now you have the problem of finding time to go to the gym every day. Now you have less time. Now you have the problem of spending more money. Now you have the problem of spending more money for food. So do you see all these things, right? No matter what you do, there is always going to be some problem in life. So the next time you're experiencing something, right, understand that, like, bro, problems are always exchanged and upgraded. So I know some problems are bigger than others, right? And obviously we don't want problems, but there's no one in this earth who is living a problem-free life. Everyone has problems whatsoever. So understanding this is going to help you stop comparing yourself to other people, and it's going to help you in traumatic situations, and you're going to see problems not as an L, but it's like, okay, this is normal, this is part of life. Every single thing that I do, there's always going to be a problem. So that's something that's going to rewire your brain when you go through a problem. And the last concept that I learned from this book, the fifth tip, is this mentality and this realization that your brain is so powerful that it's actually not good for you. So I'm going to tell you how this has changed my life, right? So Mark Manson, this author, right, he basically says that our brains are so powerful, right? Like, we spent all our lives talking about the brain. We praise the brain. We've literally have heard our whole lives, oh, your brain's the most important thing in your body. It's always awake. It's literally why we think. It's why we're so powerful. And that's 100% true, right? But that's the problem of the brain. Because the problem with the brain in like this whole social anxiety aspect, right, is that your brain is so powerful that it can actually create things that aren't true and literally convince yourself that they are true. So, for example, right, in this book, Mark Manson explains this like test, right? He basically explains that, one day these test subjects, like 10 individuals, they were sent into a room, and their objective was to press the right combination of buttons to get a buzzer in the room above their head on the ceiling, right, to go off. So, these people want to do an experiment, and the contestants had to press all these buttons to make this buzzer go off. And if they got the combination from the hundreds of buttons in that room, if they pressed the right ones, right, they were to keep doing that to get as many points as they can, right? Doing a bunch of things. So they take all these guys, right? And they're just like, okay, you ready? Ready, set, go. So once this experiment started, right, these test subject, they started pushing a bunch of buttons, hundreds of buttons, different combinations. They're pushing everything, they're doing this, right, and eventually, with time, the buzzer starts going off, right, and so these test subjects, they're pressing a bunch of buttons, and they realize, oh wait, the buzzer's going off, I think I got the right combination. So they start pressing all these buttons, right, they're just like over here, over there, and in reality, these test subjects, these buttons have nothing to do with the buzzer going off, because the buzzer in the room that's going off is being randomly going off. It's being chosen to go off by the people conducting the experiment. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because these guys, these people in the room pressing the buttons, they think that they were getting the right combinations and making the buzzer go off to get as much points as possible for the experiment, right? But in reality, they're pushing a bunch of different buttons, and they had no control over the buzzer. But in the experiment, their brain waves showed that they were being right. Their confidence went up. Their brain was basically convincing themselves that because they were doing all these things and pressing these buttons, something positive was happening. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because there's so many times that we go into social situations, we overthink. Like, for example, we can think that, oh, this guy didn't like my conversation. Oh, my voice is terrible. Oh, these guys didn't like me. When in reality, 95% of the time, it's not true. Like, this literally happened to me like a couple days ago, right? So I was in this class, and, this teacher that I had, he made every single person in the room present themselves, right? And eventually people went, and it got to my turn. But for some reason, right, this teacher there, he kept interrupting my story. I didn't really get to say what I wanted, and I also didn't sleep well that day, so I kind of had some brain fog. I didn't get to say exactly what I wanted, right? But honestly, because of the interruption and the way that I spoke, right, after me introducing myself to the class, I just kind of felt bad. I'm just like, dude, I didn't even get to introduce myself really. Like he kept interrupting me. I didn't really get to say. I was kind of stuttering. So during the whole class, right, I was just kind of down. I was just like, like, people are gonna think, oh, this guy can't introduce himself. People are probably laughing at me that the teacher kept interrupting me. And so, I thought I was kind of just like, I kind of got like the short stick of this class. And basically, after that, right, I kind of leave the class going down. And after that, two people from the class literally introduced themselves to me, like randomly, like no connection whatsoever. I'm just like, oh, okay, like what's up, bro? And I was super confused. And then I realized this topic. I thought about this and I was just like, dude, my brain was telling me a bunch of stuff that wasn't true. Yeah, the teacher interrupted me. Yeah, I didn't get this. I stuttered and I didn't get to explain myself clearly. But these guys, they still introduced themselves. They must have like resonated with my introduction, started talking to me about my hobbies, right? So when you realize that your brain in social situations, especially in like social situations, tells you a bunch of stuff that's not true, and once you realize that, it's kind of just like, oh wait. No, yeah, like sometimes like I don't think my brain's telling me the right thing. I'm gonna ignore it. And like I said, you're gonna wanna this sounds crazy because we've adored this so much, we've praised our brain so much. We think it's amazing, but literally it's so powerful that it can go against you because your brain can create everything. So once you realize that, those five things, those are gonna your confidence is gonna boost, skyrocket out of here, and you're gonna feel a lot better in social situations.